Welcome to DRM News Global. We are diving deep into a major story today. The widespread protests popping up all over the U.S.
Since Trump got back in the White House.
Yeah, since Trump's return to the White House, exactly.
Yeah.
So we've been looking at a bunch of news reports to see, how these demonstrations are coming together.
Yeah.
Where
Where they're happening.
Where they are, what people want to get done. And, we want you, our listener, to get the full picture. Right. Quickly and all.
Right.
So we went through it all, got the key stuff. And one thing that really jumps out, immediately is this idea of a brazen power grab. That's what a lot of this seems to be about. And it's a term being used by the group Indivisible. So let's break down what that means, what's going on here.
Well, the scale of these hands-off events is huge, and the level of organization, it's impressive. It's not just a few protests here and there. The reports show this is a nationwide thing.
Yeah, I was looking at the numbers and
Over 1,000 events planned, specifically targeting each congressional district. That's over 1,200 demonstrations total. They're trying to be everywhere.
it's not just inside the U.S. either, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We saw in the reports this, people pushing back. It's international. Solidarity rallies in big cities, Paris, Rome, London. It's not just an American thing.
Yeah, it really shows you this isn't just a domestic reaction. It's bigger.
Way bigger. And the main event here in the U.S., well, it had to be in D.C., right? The National Mall.
Right. Organizers had big plans for that one. Some even said it could be bigger than the People's March.
Before Trump's second inauguration.
Yeah. So you can imagine the energy, the turnout they were expecting.
I mean, that's massive.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, though, because it wasn't all about these huge crowds.
Right.
Organizers wanted people to be able to participate everywhere. They weren't just focused on a few big cities. The reports talk about making sure there was visible opposition across the entire country, even in smaller towns.
Exactly. Even if the numbers were smaller in some places, it was about showing that this discontent, it's everywhere.
Right. It's not just a big city thing. It's like a shared feeling.
And to pull something like that off, you need a lot of organization.
Oh, yeah.
And the reports mention a ton of groups working together.
The coalition, right.
Yeah, over 150 organizations. That's a lot.
That's incredible. And some of them are big names, groups people probably recognize. Can you give us some of the main ones?
Sure. So you've got Move On, you've got the Women's March, Indivisible.
Right. They're a progressive grassroots organization, right?
That's right. And then there's Working Families Power, Public Citizen, all pretty big players in organizing this. But it's not just them.
Yep.
You also have newer grassroots groups, like this group called 50501. Apparently, they started up after the last election. So it's a real mix of established groups and newer ones.
So a lot of different people coming together.
Which shows how deep this mobilization goes, how varied it is.
And it's not just about one issue, is it?
No, not at all.
The reasons people are protesting, it's a pretty wide range.
Yeah.
So what are the big things driving people to, get out there and protest?
Well, a lot of it is about Trump's moves to downsize the government.
Right, potentially.
Exactly.
Not for sure,
Yeah.
but the potential's there.
That's right. And that includes things like firing federal workers, possibly closing Social Security offices.
Oh, wow.
Even talk of closing down whole agencies.
I could see why people would be upset.
Oh, and the economy's a big worry for a lot of people, too.
Yeah, of course. Those economic anxieties make sense.
And then you've got the human rights concerns, which are huge.
Yeah, that was a big part of the reports. So what are we talking about there?
The potential deportation of immigrants, rolling back protections for transgender people,
Yep.
cuts to federal funding for health programs.
Big cuts.
Potentially.
Yeah.
And those are all driving people to protest. So you'll see demonstrations specifically about supporting those federal employees who might lose their jobs.
Right.
And then there are those advocating for LGBTQ plus rights, standing with immigrant communities, speaking out about Palestinian self-determination, showing support for Ukraine.
So it's not just one thing. It's about a lot of different things.
It's about pushing back against the Trump administration's whole agenda.
It's interesting, though, right? Because we've seen big protests before in the U.S.
Right.
Like the Women's March back in 2017.
Huge.
The Black Lives Matter protests in 2020. Those were massive.
Absolutely.
So how do these hands-off events compare?
Well, there's data from the Crowd Counting Consortium, and it says the number of protests in February 2025 was actually higher than in February 2017.
Higher. Even than during Trump's first month back then.
Yeah, that's pretty significant.
But I feel like this time it's different. It's not as, in your face.
Yeah, you're right. It feels different. The media's not covering it as much. The individual protests, they don't seem as big. at least not consistently.
But the organizers of these hands-off events, they're hoping to change that, right?
They want this to be the biggest show of opposition since Trump came back. They see it as a really crucial moment.
It's like they're drawing a line in the sand. So we've heard about what the organizers and protesters want, but what about the White House?
What do they think about all this?
Yeah, how are they responding to all this activity?
Well, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said they're not too worried. Basically, the message is these protests aren't going to stop them.
Even the lawsuits, the legal challenges, they're not backing down.
Nope. They say they're going to keep pushing their agenda to make the government more efficient and accountable.
At least that's how they see it.
Yeah. But even with the White House kind of brushing it off, the organizers, they're determined. Like, they want to make their opposition known.
It's almost like it's a matter of principle for them.
Totally. Rachel O'Leary-Carmona from the Women's March, she put it really well. It's about being on the record in opposition. Whether it's a huge march or a small gathering, they want a record of it.
Like they're documenting their resistance.
Yes. Exactly. They want to make their dissent very clear, very public.
There was one thing in the reports that really stood out to me. It was the way Indivisible described this power grab. They didn't just mention Trump. They included Elon Musk.
Oh, yeah, that was interesting. What do you think that means?
It seems like they're worried about more than just the government. It's like they see Musk as part of the problem, too.
I think you're right. It's like they see him as enabling or even supporting Trump's agenda. They're worried about the influence of these powerful people outside of the government.
It's like they're saying it's not just about politics anymore. It's about, like, technology and wealth mixed in with it all.
That's a good point. They're definitely looking at the bigger picture.
So let's sum it up. We're seeing all these protests organized and coordinated across the country. And they're driven by a lot of different concerns, from fears about government downsizing in the economy to worries about human rights and social issues.
And while there might be more protests than in 2017, the impact hasn't been as big, at least not yet. But the hands-off demonstrations, they're hoping to change that.
They want to show the level of opposition to Trump since he returned.
Exactly. It's a really diverse group of organizers, and they're determined to be visible everywhere. Even with the White House being dismissive, these groups are committed to making their dissent clear.
So that leaves us with a question for you, the listener. What do you think is the biggest reason behind all this opposition? What's the root of it all? And looking ahead, how do you think all this activism will affect U.S. politics? These are definitely things to think about as all this unfolds.
It'll be interesting to see where it all goes.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive here on DRM News Global.